Chapter 466. The Beginning of a Calamity 3. Yeah, I dare to interfere with you, you fucking parasite-eyed bastard. Huh. Mok Gon's expression turned cold at the coarse curse that came out of Chuanchu's mouth, the former first rank of the secret society. Whether it was the Avatar or not, this mere subordinate who usually couldn't even look him in the face dared to insult and interfere with him at such a crucial moment. Swish. Mok Gon raised his left hand. As if they had been waiting nearby, bizarre winged Imimangniang revealed themselves. Grr. Just by the flowing demonic energy alone, these were at least demonic-level Imimangniang. As expected of the place where Mok Gon's real body had been, there was a considerable number of flying Imimangniang. There were nearly dozens of them waiting. It seemed he had left them behind, anticipating they might come by air. Mok Gon sneered and said, "Foolish one. I'll make you pay the price for betrayal. Don't make me laugh. You're the one who betrayed me. Why did you take my father away from me?" Whoosh. As Chunchu spread both hands wide, dozens of fireballs formed as hot air spread around her. Seeing her like this, Mok Gon clicked his tongue. Having been a top executive of secret society, she should know well the group's strength and how terrifying he was. Was she really willing to risk her life just because she lost her father? Clicking his tongue, Mok Gon soon pointed his raised left hand towards Chunchu. As if on cue, the Imimangniang began firing demonic energy bullets at Chunchu, opening their mouths. Papping. Chunchu also launched fireballs condensed with explosive demonic energy she had created. As the demonic energy bullets and fireballs collided, explosions that seemed to shake the surroundings erupted one after another. Quack. Now. In that instant, Mok Gon stretched out his right hand with all his internal energy gathered. Then the formless sword that had been stopped by the explosions finally pierced through them and flew towards Chongrayong. Since she was trapped in the supreme void sealing reversal technique, he would have no choice but to lose her if she got any further away. If not now, the chance would. At that moment, Mok Gon's expression contorted horribly. He had thought Chunchu wouldn't be able to intervene while blocking the Imimangniang, but she had flown into the trajectory and blocked the formless sword with her own body. This wench, she really. Was she determined to oppose him even at the cost of her life? Of course, Mok Gon's assumption was correct. After stopping the formless sword that had pierced her abdomen with her body, Chunchu glanced back while grasping it with her left hand full of demonic energy. Chongrayong was gradually getting smaller and farther away. Go. You must go there first. That way things won't flow as this damned eye parasite bastard wants. Cough. Although she had rapid regeneration befitting a top executive, even she couldn't overcome the power of the formless sword, which could be called the sword's extreme, as she coughed up blood from internal injuries. However, her will was still intense, and the heat of her anger was burning even more fiercely. Swish. Quack. As Chunchu stretched out her hand, the halted explosions resumed, blocking the approaching Imimangniang. What she had to do here was clear. Even if this becomes my grave, she would take them all to the afterlife. As if sensing her determination, Chongrayong, who was flying away, clenched her fist tightly. Chunchu had probably resolved herself to die. This was likely the only path of revenge for her. To prevent her sacrifice from being in vain, she had to arrive before Mok Gon's real body could reach heaven and earth society somehow. Mortal. Strangely, her mind was filled with worry for Mok Jaeongun rather than hatred. She tried to shake it off. She believed that if it was Mok Jaeongun, he would surely escape the trap that bastard had prepared and come to where she was. She drew forth even more spiritual energy and pressed forward. Sichuan Province. A valley that had become almost ruins after Jean's 6 barrier collapsed. It was a horrific scene of carnage, with the corpses and blood of Imimangniang strewn everywhere. At the bottom of a rock wall, a single hand was sticking out from between the shattered rocks piled up. The hand that had been motionless as if dead began to tremble. Then, chew. The hand turned red hot and steam flowed out. At that very moment, quang, the piled-up rocks shattered into pieces and flew up, revealing someone covered in wounds all over their body. It was Yu Mujin, a member of the Yu clan. Ha. Even in a normal state, being buried under so many rocks would have been enough to cause death by crushing. But having sustained injuries on top of that, even for Yu Mujin with the supreme physique of the Yu clan, it seemed difficult as his breathing was labored. As Yumujin caught his breath and surveyed his surroundings, his expression grew even worse. Father. He was concerned for his father's safety. Pat. Yumujin flew his body towards the valley. Damn it. While fighting the incoming enemies, he had a moment of crisis due to a sharp pain in his heart. However, the pain disappeared midway and he regained consciousness to face the Imimangniang again. But then he encountered the worst situation he had been dreading. Quackle. A being so immense that even calling it gigantic seemed laughable, crawling up while destroying Mugon Valley, known as the deepest valley in the Central Plains. The moment he saw this, Yumujin experienced the emotion of fear for the first time in his life. He knew of this being, but its actual form was beyond imagination. Grr. Kwawa. And the moment it revealed half its body and let out a roar, he was blown away by the shockwave that destroyed everything around and lost consciousness. Father! Father! Yumujin shouted as he ran through the ruined cliffs. He had never once imagined his father being defeated or killed by something. But that being had already transcended the realm of imagination. How could the ancestor have managed to seal such a tremendous monster in Mugon Valley? As he thoroughly searched the surroundings, Yumujin's eyes reddened. Could it be that he couldn't even find the body? That, after searching for a long time without finding anything, Yumujin finally fell to his knees on the ground, tears flowing. Did father really pass away without leaving even a single trace? How could that strong father flinch? At that moment Yumujin's ears perked up. The Yu clan, born with innate supreme physiques, recover their strength and heal both internal and external injuries quickly even without special breathing techniques as time passes. Although this had slowed down due to the injury to his heart, his physical abilities had somewhat recovered in the process of searching for his father. As a result, his exceptional five senses also came back to life and... Hugh. A faint sound of breathing coming from somewhere. It was not far away. It wasn't there before? Yumujin got up and headed towards where the sound was coming from. It was towards the cliff edge. Since he had to follow the sound of breathing, Yumujin jumped off the cliff without hesitation and discovered a hole in the cliff face about 30 jang down. Yumujin hurled his body into the hole. Judging by its shape, it didn't seem to be a natural hole in the cliff, but rather one that had been artificially created. In the dark hole, his eyes caught sight of someone's figure. It was his father, Yumujik, barely breathing with his right leg crushed and one arm torn off. Father! Yumujin rushed to his father and examined his condition. He was still breathing, but his father had used up all his strength and even his muscles had contracted significantly. Father! Father! At Yumujin's call, Yumujik, unable to even open his eyes properly, spoke with difficulty. Must stop. Kuru. Father! Yumujin shook his unconscious father, then bit his lip hard before slinging his father over his shoulder and coming out of the hole. Then he clung to the cliff with one hand. I have to go. To that place. The only place that could save his father, who was barely clinging to life, was there. He had to go there and inform them that the seal of the Great Strength King had been broken. The main hall of Heaven and Earth Society headquarters. Gathered there were the key figures in the victory of the internal war and the top executives under Mok Jiangun. To the immediate left of the central throne, the leader's seat, were the external recruits led by O Chionmu, the master of spiritual sword sanctuary and one of the seven heavens, along with sword demon Jui and fire faith order priestess. To the right were members of the 8 stars, including axe-destroying King Ho Taegang and Poison King Baek Saha of the 5 kings, Bright Blade King Sun Yun, Shadow Clan Master Yisian, Defense Guardian Go Yun Bayak, and Corpse Blood Valley Master Li Jiom. Among the key figures there were also those who were equivalent to or belonged to the highest ranks, such as 8 Poison Snake Staff Gaiong Sao, Masked Ma Arihayan, excommunicated monk Jiajiam Zhong, Sip Chun and Mong Muyak, but they were not present as they were continuing their missions. Shadow Spear King Gu Zhongxin, one of the 8 stars and 5 kings, was also absent as he was still under investigation for alleged collusion with the enemy faction, Secret Society. Now that we're gathered like this, there doesn't seem to be a major drop in our fighting power. This was the assessment of Poison King Baek Saha as he casually surveyed the faces of the gathered top executives with his arms crossed. There had been considerable losses in terms of manpower due to the hidden forces of Secret Society and the internal war with Na Yulriang's faction. Numerically speaking, about 1/3 of the entire force had been sacrificed. However, the conclusion was that this was not the case in terms of actual fighting power. The significant increase in masters who have crossed the wall into the transformation realm is a big factor. There were external figures like Sword Demon Ji, 8 Poison Snake Staff Gyeong Sao, Masked Ma Ari Hyan, and the renegade monk Jajiam Jong, who was comparable to the transformation realm. Additionally, he and the Corpse Blood Valley Master had crossed the wall this time. The number of Supreme Masters at the level of the 8 stars had increased by 6. Moreover, fortunately, there was no loss of the 2 existing 5 kings belonging to the 8 stars. And the biggest factor is... Baek Saha's gaze turned to Oh Cheon-mu, the master of spiritual sword sanctuary. The fact that Oh Cheon-mu, called the pinnacle of the current martial arts world and one of the 7 heavens, had joined was tremendously significant. While the Righteous Alliance and Evil Alliance each had only one person with the title of 7 heavens, the newly formed Heaven and Earth Society had 2 individuals with that title. Moreover, one of them had even surpassed the Wall of Walls, the Profound Realm, and reached the Life and Death Realm, making him arguably the closest to being the strongest under heaven. Kuhyuhyu. This Old One's choice was correct. As a result, this Old One's disciple will remain the hegemon of the new era. Perhaps feeling satisfied for no reason, the corners of Baek Saha's mouth slightly turned upward. Just then someone opened their mouth. It was axe-destroying King Ho Taegang. Now that the aftermath of the internal war seems to have been sorted out to some extent, important matters remain to be discussed. Important matters? Are there matters to discuss when Mok Jaeong-un Gongja, who is to become the society leader, hasn't even been inaugurated yet? To defense Guardian Go Yeonbaek's question, it was not axe-destroying King Ho Taegang but Shadow Clan Master Yiseon who answered. That society leader is one of the important matters. Society leader? What do you mean by that? Although it took the form of an internal war because it happened within Heaven and Earth Society, this recent war was strictly a process of creating a new organization. Do you mean? Even small units have names, so an organization befitting one of the 3 major forces should have a suitable name, don't you think? Ah. At these words, most of the top executives nodded in agreement. Those gathered under Mok Jaeong-un were not following a new successor who would become the leader of Heaven and Earth Society. Therefore, a new name for the organization was needed to reflect this. But couldn't such an important matter wait until Lord Mok Jaeong-un returns? To Corpse Blood Valley Master Lee Jeom's opinion, axe-destroying King Ho Taegang replied. Well, the final decision will of course be up to our lord, but wouldn't it be better to have some framework in place before he returns to make it easier for him to decide? This Old One agrees. Ho ho ho. Poison King Baek Saha concurred. At this, Lee Jeom also nodded in agreement. Then Shadow Clan Master Yiseon spoke. Is there anyone who would like to propose a name befitting this new organization? At these words, axe-destroying King Ho Taegang spoke as if he had been waiting. If we're going to name the organization, let's go with a strong name. Do you have something in mind? How about something like Hegemon Society that would make those Righteous Alliance and Evil Alliance bastards tremble just hearing it? Not bad. Bright Blade King Sun Yun, whose injuries had not yet healed, agreed while stroking his chin. He too had a tendency to prefer strong things. However, Corpse Blood Valley Master Lee Jeom disagreed with this, tilting his head as he spoke. The title of hegemon isn't bad, but is there a need to go back to using society? Why is there a problem with that? The title, society, might seem like we're not forgetting that our predecessor was Heaven and Earth Society. At these words from Lee Jeom, Sword Demon Jui spoke for the first time. Even to me, an outsider, that argument seems to have merit. Is there really a need to use the title, association, that the defeated used? Then does the Sword Demon have any thoughts from an outsider's perspective? To Shadow Clan Master Yiseon's question, Sword Demon Jui replied with a grin. Wouldn't the word alliance sound better? At these words, even Oh Cheon-mu, the master of spiritual sword sanctuary, nodded as if he didn't think it was a bad idea. As they were from the neutral faction, they preferred something that felt solid yet rounded. Alliance. On the other hand, the top executives from Heaven and Earth Society didn't seem too pleased with the word alliance. In the current martial arts world, organizations that use the title alliance include the Righteous Alliance and Evil Alliance. Originally, Heaven and Earth Society was an organization formed by those who wanted to worship only martial prowess, neither righteous nor evil. Was there really a need to follow the same path as the other two forces? Just then someone spoke up. How about Cult 1? Everyone's gaze turned to the owner of that voice. The one who suggested this was none other than Holy Fire Priestess of Fire Faith Order. At her suggestion, axe-destroying King Ho Taegang was the first to snort and say, "Cult? What a preposterous idea. We may have seated you at this top executive meeting, but this is strictly a martial arts organization." I agree with Brother Ho's words. Bright Blade King Sun Yun also showed his displeasure. Despite their intimidating demeanor, Holy Fire Priestess showed some tension but soon spoke again. "This isn't because I'm from Fire Faith Order." "Then what do you mean?" "Young Master Mok is an avatar of fire." "An avatar of fire? I mean he's a being who should be revered as a god. He will lead the foolish people of the Central Plains." Enough. Axe-destroying King Ho Taegang cut off her words. Then he clicked his tongue and said, "I told you this is a martial arts organization. You do well to abandon any thoughts of coloring it with Fire Faith Order's hues using your measly 3-inch tongue." "I'm not trying to color it with Fire Faith Order's hues. I just..." Holy Fire Priestess's opinion isn't entirely without merit. At that moment, Shadow Master Huan Yixian intervened. At this, the top executives from Heaven and Earth Society frowned as they looked at him. Despite their gazes, Huan Yixian calmly continued speaking. "Society, or alliance, clearly have limitations." "What do you mean by limitations?" "Shadow Master. Although we won the war, it's undeniable that over 80% of our forces are from Heaven and Earth Society. So what? Is there a problem with that?" The top executives here decided to follow young Master Mok, or rather our Lord, of their own volition, but not everyone is like that. A considerable number fought in this war without knowing anything, simply following their respective leaders, the executives. At these words, Ho Taegang couldn't deny it this time. In fact, the organization's headquarters was still in turmoil in many ways and not completely united. This was because many of them felt the recent war lacked justification and viewed it as an internal conflict within the organization. So among the members who had respected the leader of Heaven and Earth Society, there were some who harbored resentment or dissatisfaction. But that doesn't sufficiently justify using the title, cult, that hid. Because unlike alliance, or society, which emphasize the meaning of gathering itself, sect requires absolute faith in the leader, just like a country that serves an emperor. Faith. To change and absorb all the systems and power that the society has built over a long time in a short period, absolute trust in the leader is necessary. In that respect, nothing is better than cult. At Shadow Master Huan Yixian's opinion, everyone showed signs of contemplation. It was a direction they had never considered before, but it wasn't completely without precedent. After all, there was the blood cult in the past martial arts world. Just then Sword Demon Goe snickered and said, "If we need to make the leader an absolute being, why not just use the leader's title or name? How about Mok Jiangun cult or even Heavenly Demon cult?" In fact, this was a joke from Sword Demon Goe to lighten the mood. However, no one laughed at his words. Instead, everyone seemed to be seriously considering his suggestion, carefully mouthing Heavenly Demon cult. "What's this? Are they really taking this seriously?" As he was puzzled, that's when it happened. Tada. Someone hurriedly entered the main hall. Judging by the attire, it seemed to be a messenger from the Shadow Clan's intelligence division. As soon as the messenger entered, he knelt on one knee, clasped his hands in a salute and reported in an urgent voice. "Urgent report. The entire force of the Righteous Alliance is rapidly advancing south towards our headquarters." Chapter 467. The Beginning of a Calamity 4. Urgent report. The entire force of the Righteous Alliance is rapidly advancing south towards our headquarters. Taken completely by surprise by this sudden report, Shadow Clan Master Yixian stood up with a furrowed brow and asked, "Did you say the entire force of the Righteous Alliance is advancing south towards here?" "Yes, my lord. Judging by your attire, you're from the southern Hubei branch. When did you first receive this news?" "Well, that." Bang. Axe-destroying King Ho Taegang slammed his hand on the armrest and raised his voice. Can't you speak properly? We found out as they were preparing to cross the Yangtze River. The main hall fell into an icy silence at the messenger's report. There were two reasons for their reaction. First, learning about it as they were preparing to cross the Yangtze meant that either the Righteous Alliance had moved so swiftly that none of the branches noticed them coming down from Hunan through northern Hubei, or all the branches had already been taken out. Second, although the messenger had hurried, some time had passed since he left, which meant the enemy had likely already crossed the Yangtze and reached Hunan. If so, it wouldn't be long before the Righteous Alliance forces reached their headquarters. Assuming they hurried, it was entirely possible within 2 weeks. Of all times, it seems information has leaked out. The main hall was in an uproar. It hadn't been long since they'd fought a war and were still sorting out internal matters. Yet for the Righteous Alliance to advance south with all their forces like this meant information had undoubtedly leaked. Sword Demon Ji clicked his tongue and muttered, "We'll be fighting a real battle in a short time, something that hasn't happened in decades." Ahem. Lord Zhou O Cheonmu, the master of Spiritual Sword Sanctuary and one of the Seven Heavens, lightly rebuked him. Beyond being an external recruit, this was now their problem too. A war against the Righteous Alliance's forces was absolutely not something to be taken lightly. The Righteous Alliance. This could severely damage morale. Poison King Baek Saha expressed this concern. They were about to engage in all-out war with the Righteous Alliance forces so soon after fighting their own war. Even the top executives were taking this seriously, so the morale of the regular warriors would likely plummet. But Bright Blade King Sun Yun lightly tapped the floor with the sword cane he was leaning on and spoke. "We don't have the luxury of staying silent. If the messenger's report is true, we need to organize our forces and move out before they reach our headquarters." That's right. If we resort to a defensive battle, the damage will be uncontrollable. Defense Guardian Go Yunbayok also agreed with this. Even if they had systems in place for a defensive battle, there were many non-combatants from the clan inside. If these people got caught up in it, not only would there be casualties but they might even be taken hostage. Therefore, defending the headquarters should be the last resort. At that moment, O Cheonmu, the master of Spiritual Sword Sanctuary, looked at everyone and said, "If we're going to fight this war anyway, let's boost our morale. If the top executives here show low morale, it will affect those below us." Master O's words are correct. This was a war we'd have to fight eventually anyway. Since we're fighting it, let's try to change the game properly this time. Poison King Baek Saha, who was actually of a similar age despite looking different due to his body transformation, agreed and supported his words. Axe-destroying King Ho Taegang said to Shadow Clan Master Yasian, "Lord Huan, please send a messenger to our lord urging him to return. Although his mission is important, we cannot be without our leader in an all-out war against the Righteous Alliance." Understood. I'll do that. Well then, let's start the strategy meeting. Before he could finish his sentence, another person dressed as a messenger rushed into the main hall. Ho Taegang clicked his tongue and asked, "What is it now?" Urgent report. The Evil Alliance is also advancing south with all their forces, divided into an advance and rear guard. The expressions of the executives who had been trying to raise morale until just moments ago immediately hardened. This was true even for axe-destroying King Ho Taegang, who had been leading the atmosphere. What on earth was this news? The Evil Alliance? Aren't they located even further north than the Righteous Alliance? The Evil Alliance is advancing south? Is this information certain? Corpse Blood Valley Master Li Jiom asked in a serious voice. This was because among the three major forces in the current martial arts world, the Righteous Alliance was undoubtedly the strongest. For this reason, Heaven and Earth Society had been maintaining friendly relations with the Evil Alliance, if only for the sake of balance. Why on earth would they be advancing south? Could they have mistaken this for an opportunity to attack the empty Righteous Alliance headquarters? To this, the messenger replied, "No. It's reported that the first Alliance Lord of the Evil Alliance, the unruly evil hegemon Emperor Hang Sim, has already led an advance force of 8,000 cavalry past the Righteous Alliance headquarters and reached northern Hubei. The first Alliance Lord of the Evil Alliance, unruly evil hegemon Emperor Hang Sim, 1. He was called the Hegemon of the North and was one of the Seven Heavens, the pinnacle of the current martial arts world. Given that no sects under the Righteous Alliance tried to stop them as they advanced south, it seems clear. Though he didn't finish his sentence, the same thought crossed the minds of all the top executives simultaneously. An alliance between the righteous and the demonic. This was something that had never happened since the Great War between the righteous and demonic factions in the past. 2 days later, 6 Office's Commander Jean Yurin, who had been heading towards the Evil Alliance headquarters, also couldn't hide her bewilderment when she heard this news after stopping by an Evil Alliance branch with a branch leader from the Nine Blood cult. The First Alliance Lord of the Evil Alliance led the advance guard south? That's correct. What on earth is going on? She had been planning to try to prevent Secret Society from awakening the 6 demons in Datong, north of Shaanxi province, with the help of the Evil Alliance. But this news was like a bolt from the blue. To the bewildered Jean Yurin, the branch leader said, "We're not entirely sure either since it happened so suddenly, but we hear that a wooden box with the seal of Heaven and Earth Society arrived at the headquarters containing the heads of 500 branch leaders and members from various branches in Heaven and Earth Society's territory. That seems to have triggered it, but we're also confused about why they suddenly allied with the Righteous Alliance." They allied with the Righteous Alliance? That's right. Jean Yurin's expression turned serious at the branch leader's answer. There had been no sign of this at all when she had received help from the Evil Alliance. For this to happen so suddenly. Secret Society. Grind. They must have plotted something. Although she had been distanced from the martial arts world while serving as an Imperial Guard, she knew that the Evil Alliance and Heaven and Earth Society had quite friendly relations. For them to become enemies and to form an alliance with the Righteous Alliance, who had been their mortal enemies since the Great War between the righteous and demonic factions, was hard to understand. What should I do about this? She couldn't help but be troubled. Things had gone awry. This meant that getting help from the Evil Alliance to stop the 6 demons was now out of the question. Then, suddenly remembering the mention of an advance guard, she asked, "Did the Second Alliance Lord? Did he also participate in this war?" The Second Alliance Lord Golden Indestructible Body, Yuhei Yokwon, and the Fifth Alliance Lord Azura Slaughter Blade, 3, Yu Jiang were from the Nine Blood cult. They were also reliable allies for her, the only survivor of the Jean family. Although they were Alliance Lords of the Evil Alliance, they had heard about Secret Society from her, so they couldn't have been without doubts about this. To her question, the branch leader replied, "I heard that the Second Alliance Lords strongly opposed this war, but according to the final decision of the Alliance Lords meeting, I believe he's leading the rear guard." With the wooden box containing the heads of Evil Alliance branch leaders and members, there was no choice but to yield to the justification for war. But what was important to Jean Yurin wasn't that. Her eyes sparkled as she asked, "Where is the rear guard now?" "The backyard of Harmonious Immortal Pavilion." A cloud of smoke rose, forming a circle, and someone leapt out from within it. That someone was none other than Yeo Su-rin, a diviner of Harmonious Immortal Pavilion. As soon as Yeo Su-rin emerged from the smoky portal, about a dozen diviners rushed out to the backyard with talismans and ritual tools, apparently having sensed her spell power. "Sister Yeo?" One of them, a diviner with a handsome face, recognized her with furrowed brows. "Senior brother." Yeo Su-rin's eyes welled up with tears of joy as she tried to hug him. But the diviner called Senior Brother firmly rejected this, leaning away from her. At this she spoke with a sulky face. "Isn't that too much after not seeing each other for so long? Men and women should keep their distance. Why are you trying to cling to me like this? More importantly, why are you only coming now? Didn't you receive the message Master sent?" "Message? I didn't receive anything. I was actually coming to ask Master for help, but did something happen?" To her question, the diviner called Senior Brother clicked his tongue and replied, "So you didn't know how serious the situation has become?" "What do you mean the situation has become serious?" "The seal at Great Yen Temple has been broken." "What?" Yeo Su-rin's eyes widened. Great Yen Temple of the esoteric Buddhist sect in Datong, northern Shaanxi province. They were monks who cultivated Buddhist law, but as members of the esoteric sect, they were also skilled in sorcery. The abbot of Great Yen Temple, Great Master Gakwon, was one of the 6 direction gods who had inherited spiritual power and sorcery from previous generations, and had long guarded the being sealed in Great Yen Temple. Only the six direction gods called the pinnacle of diviners knew about that being. Has the white great pink demon king been released? Yes. That's impossible. I heard that seal was made by over 1,000 moon level and higher diviners pouring all their spell power into it. And until now at Great Yen Temple, they've been chanting the demon subduing sutra. And yet that seal has been broken. Yeo Surin's expression turned serious. I feared it might be true, but Lord Mok's concerns are really coming to pass. She had come here to consult with her master, the Red Eyebrow Old Immortal, for this very reason. If secret society was trying to move the six demons, the leaders of the Imi Mangniang, this was no longer just a matter for the martial arts world. It was the worst calamity for the Central Plains, requiring all diviners to take action. It seemed her master's absence was likely due to this as well. Then did master go to the meeting of the 64 diviner sects to discuss this? To her question, the diviner called Senior Brother shook his head and replied, "No, that's not it." "No? Why not?" "The release of one of the six demons, the kings of Imi Mangniang, is nothing short of a catastrophe. Along with that, the worst situation has occurred." "What could be worse than that?" 70% of the diviners from the 64 diviner sects suddenly vanished as if they had evaporated. What? She couldn't hide her shock. 70% of the diviners from the 64 diviner sects would amount to tens of thousands of diviners disappearing. What on earth is going on? As she wondered, the diviner called Senior Brother was about to place his hand on her shoulder but hesitated, barely touching it with his fingertips as he spoke. "It seems Master is currently investigating that. For now, since most of the diviners active outside have all disappeared, Master has ordered all diviners of our pavilion not to leave Harmonious Immortal Pavilion. That's why we sent you a message to return. Anyway, it's fortunate that you've come back like this. For the time being, don't leave Harmonious Immortal Pavilion and stay inside here." "No, I can't." "What? What do you mean you can't?" "If that's true, then I especially can't stay here." "What on earth are you saying? Master called for you to return and ordered not to leave the pavilion. Are you saying you're going to disobey?" "Senior Brother." "Grab." Yeo Surin suddenly grasped his hand. The face and ears of the diviner called Senior Brother instantly turned red. To him she spoke pleadingly. "I need Master's great ritual tool from the Divine Origin Hall." "What?" Chapter 468. The Great Battle, 1. Lacking immunity to women, he was easily embarrassed, his face turning bright red at the slightest touch. However, at the mention of the great ritual tool from Yeo Surin's mouth, his flushed face instantly cooled. "No. That's absolutely not allowed." "Ah, Senior Brother. You've already been punished for sneaking into the Divine Origin Hall and damaging Master's ritual tool before, yet you dare say such things again? That was when I was still inexperienced. Now, even now, Master would have forbidden entry to the Divine Origin Hall. That's why I need your help, Senior Brother. Aren't you being too brazen?" Yeo Surin's Senior Brother was dumbfounded. Master had originally forbidden even leaving Harmonious Immortal Pavilion, let alone touching Master's great ritual tool. If he found out about this, it would be grounds for immediate expulsion. This time it's absolutely not allowed. With the white great pink demon king's seal broken and diviners disappearing, ominous events are unfolding. If you try to do something so foolish, I'll have no choice but to lock you in the facing wall room. What if it's not just one of the six demons being released? What? What do you mean? Exactly what I said. What I'm trying to do may be disobeying Master's orders, but it's definitely not a foolish act. Her suddenly serious tone made her Senior Brother furrow his brow and ask, "What do you mean it's not just one of the six demons being released?" "Exactly that. You don't know what mission I've been on, do you, Senior Brother? It's a rule of our pavilion that missions from Master must be kept secret from other disciples. Surely you're not thinking of breaking that rule. Does it look like I can keep following rules in this situation?" "Well." As her Senior Brother looked troubled, she touched her forehead and said, "You remember the heavenly signs Master read? That the three eyes would bring chaos to the world. Are you saying the current events are related to that?" To his question, Yeo Surin replied in a meaningful tone. "That's right. If we don't act now because of Master's orders, there could be even more sacrifices than what's happening now." "Sacrifices? If we stand by and do nothing, countless people in the Central Plains could die. That's why I desperately need your help, senior brother. Ha. At her words, her senior brother sighed, his troubled expression deepening as he struggled with what to do. 3 days later. The complexion of Mok Gon's avatar in the form of an old man had become quite haggard. Though he was enduring thanks to the overflowing original energy from absorbing the blood of spirit beasts, the ancient forbidden technique Supreme Void Sealing Reversal Technique required the practitioner's sacrifice, slowly becoming overwhelming. At most, this avatar would only last a few more days before its lifespan ran out. Of course, even then the Supreme Void Sealing Reversal Technique wouldn't be dispelled. A complete true seal couldn't be broken by external or internal forces unless the dispelling technique was activated. What a tenacious bunch they were. Mok Gon's avatar clicked his tongue, glaring at Mok Jiangun, who remained trapped in the Supreme Void Sealing Reversal Technique. He had been constantly trying to take his life with his gaze, but each time Mok Jiangun countered with his mind sword, causing even more damage to himself. How can he maintain such mental strength after regressing to a human? It had been nearly 9 days, yet his spirit remained intact. Originally, this technique was meant to trap beings like spirit beasts or immortals who tried to defy the natural order rather than humans. Thus, ordinary humans would typically go mad after just a few days, unable to endure the stagnant time. Yet this guy's eyes were still alive, and even in this situation he was struggling to break free. But it's useless. The mind sword is exactly what it sounds like, a sword of the mind. It only worked on living beings, so it couldn't do anything against the Supreme Void Sealing Reversal Technique that bound the entire space. Uhuhu. You will die here. In the agony of having everything precious taken away from you. Quack-quack-quack-quang. Just then, the sound of explosions reached even inside the Supreme Void Sealing Reversal Technique. Mok Gon frowned. Ha. That woman was unbelievably persistent. Despite her slowed recovery due to the wound from the formless sword, she had fought tirelessly day and night for 9 days to stop them. In the end, she had managed to prevent them from capturing Ryu So-wul's Hun. Mok Gon clicked his tongue. To actually hold off dozens of demonic-level beast or higher Imi Mangniang while injured. Was her obsession with revenge this intense? But it seemed that even that was coming to an end now. There were 4 Imi Mangniang left. All of them were demonic beasts. For her, exhausted and having depleted most of her demon power, this was the limit. He could tell just by looking at her pale face. Ha. Ha. As Mok Gon judged, Chunchu was beyond exhausted, hanging on by sheer obsession for revenge alone. With that last attack she had taken out 3 Imi Mangniang, but now she truly had no strength left. Without energy her body was gradually falling downwards. Noticing her condition, the remaining 4 demon beasts simultaneously opened their mouths and fired demonic energy bullets. Papapapang. Looking at the approaching demonic energy bullets, she stretched out her trembling hand and muttered softly, "Father, I'll see you soon." With that, her body was engulfed by the demonic energy bullets. Quack-quack-quang. Around the same time, Mok Jiangun's confidants returning to Heaven and Earth Society headquarters on Humwen, were being chased by an Imi Mangniang in the form of an insect even larger than Humwen. Persistent bastard. The excommunicated monk Jiajiamzhong tried to drive away the Imi Mangniang using his Vajra and ritual tools, but the cunning creature skillfully avoided them while attacking Humwen. As a result, Humwen's wings and body were covered in wounds. Bing. Twatch. Ha. Ha. Damn bug bastards. Siap Chun swung his poison sect weapon, the Mad Dance sword, ceaselessly cutting down the flying insects. Not just him, but the others were also dealing with the numerous poisonous insects sent by the Imi Mangniang. Even the injured Mong Muyak fought hard but lost consciousness after being stung by a poisonous insect. If 8 poison snake staff Gyeongso, the expert in poisons, hadn't been there, he might have lost his life. Just hold on a bit longer. Papapapapak. Gyeongso protected Mong Muyak while striking down the incoming poisonous insects with his staff. Papapat. Even Ma Arihayan, who had initially been splitting himself into 2 or 3 bodies to climb onto Humwen's back and deal with the insects, was now breathing heavily, seemingly exhausted. Hugh. Siap Chun. Speak. Can you see the headquarters? At Ma Arihayan's shout, Siap Chun looked down below the carriage and let out a sigh. Originally, since they had been flying, they should have been close to the headquarters by now, but it seemed they had gone in a different direction while being chased by that giant insect like Imi Mang Niang. What was visible below was a river. Damn it. Where the hell are we? It was impossible to determine their location. At this rate, it seemed they might die before reaching the headquarters. Just then the carriage tilted suddenly, lurching to the side. Whoa! As the startled Siap Chun grasped the carriage, he saw the Human's massive feathers falling in droves before his eyes. What's going on? Looking up, he saw that the feathers on one of Human's wings were falling out, revealing wounds. Why? That area had been healed by Chun Chu, the first rank of secret society. She had cut her wrist, poured blood on the wounded area, and chanted what seemed like a spell, causing the pierced wound to close and feathers to regrow. But now he couldn't understand what was happening. Why were the feathers suddenly? At that very moment, the Human tried to delay the fall by flapping with one wing, but the insect form Imi Mang Niang, seizing this opportunity, swooped in and attacked, causing them to plummet downwards. Arg. Grab onto something tight. Below. There's a river below. Jump to match it. Was it a stroke of luck? The place they were falling towards happened to be a river. Fush. Twa. As the massive Human fell into the river, the water surged, creating waves as high as a tsunami. Mok Jiongun's confidants, who had fallen into the water, began to surface one by one. Pwa. Gasp. Damn it. I almost went to Buddha's side. Muyak? Is Muyak all right? Gyeong So, who had surfaced, held the unconscious Mong Muyak by the nape of his neck, keeping his face above water while struggling to kick his legs. Splash. Pot. Just then Ma Arehayan emerged from the water, taking off his broken mask and grabbing Mong Muyak, saying, I'll take care of Muyak. Ha. Thank you. Gyeong So, already struggling with his old body and injuries, expressed his gratitude. Meanwhile, they weren't sure if the Human was all right. It had sunk deep into the river and wasn't resurfacing. As getting out of the middle of the river seemed to be the most urgent matter, they all started swimming without hesitation. But then, boom, the sound of flapping wings reached their ears, and the river water around them began to churn violently like a storm, with winds so strong it was hard to keep their eyes open. Ha! Siap Chun was dumbstruck as he saw the insect form Imi Mang Niang appear above them. The others felt the same way. They no longer had the strength to face this creature. Is this how it ends? At that moment, Purrumbum. Thunder and lightning struck from the clear sky, and dark clouds suddenly began to gather all around. Everyone was bewildered by this sudden change. Twa. Then they heard the sound of water parting and the currents became more violent. The giant insect form Imi Mang Niang, which had been flapping its wings as if about to pounce on them, suddenly turned its gaze elsewhere. A massive ship was approaching. Countless vengeful spirits stood on the deck and even clung to the sides of the ship. Huh. The renegade monk Jiamzhong's face lit up as he saw someone standing majestically at the bow of the ship with their hands behind their back. It was the vengeful spirit Ha Yun, who had helped them cross the flooding river during the heavy rain before. The vengeful spirit Ha Yun shouted loudly at the giant insect form Imi Mang Niang. You bastard! Will you not back away from my friends? 4 days later, around noon. In front of the 10,000 Great Mountains, a range filled with countless peaks, a vast crowd could be seen approaching in formation. At the front of the line, a banner bearing the name Righteous Alliance fluttered. Finally, they've come. Axe-destroying King Ho Taegang, who had been watching from the highest peak, raised his axe. The warriors behind him made hand signals, and in response, the society's warriors waiting on each mountain peak simultaneously raised their flags. Among the black flags with red emblems, large characters could be seen. Heavenly Demon. As the numerous flags were suddenly raised over the mountain peaks, the advancing Righteous Alliance's procession came to a halt all at once. Chapter 469. The Great Battle, 2. The major sects and families symbolizing the Righteous Alliance, along with the medium and small sects. Combined, they formed a massive force of 46,000. The greatest strength of the righteous faction, which advocated for the righteous path, lay in their cooperation. They prided themselves on being unmatched by the demonic faction in their ability to gather and unite, knowing that even small forces could become strong when combined and concentrated. Let's use this opportunity to completely uproot those demonic bastards. Wawa. With a force even greater than the last great war between the righteous and demonic factions gathered, their morale was sky-high. If the Namgung family, Hebei Ping family, and even the Sichuan Tang clan who couldn't participate due to unforeseen circumstances had joined, it would have reached an unprecedented 50,000, the greatest force in history. However, this alone was enough to be called the strongest among the three major powers. Disgustingly numerous. Bright Blade King Sun Yun, standing on one of the peaks of the 10,000 Great Mountains, clicked his tongue. Due to the losses suffered during the internal war with Secret Society and Na Yelriang's elder faction within Heaven and Earth Society, their current force was less than half of the enemy's numbers. Their current strength was 21,000. It would have been difficult if we had met them on the plains for sure. Hoo. Shadow Clan Master Yixian also clicked his tongue at the enemy's numerical superiority. If they had clashed on the plains, their troops' morale would have plummeted in the face of a force more than twice their size. Thump thump. Defense Guardian Go Yanbake, standing next to Yixian, pounded his fists together and said, "We may be outnumbered, but nearly half of their forces are just rabble. The quality and skill of our warriors are far superior." Hoo. That's right. This was their strength, different from the Righteous Alliance. Having trained their warriors through life-threatening practices like the Corpse Blood Valley, their practical combat experience actually surpassed the enemy's. The so-called gentlemen or chivalrous heroes of the Righteous faction were somewhat lacking in real combat experience. Even when they trained, they stopped at sparring, so their ability to kill others was inferior compared to the demonic faction or Heaven and Earth Society. Still, we must remain vigilant. Those numbers can make up for such deficiencies. However, a twofold difference could provide an overwhelming sense of pressure, making it dangerous to rashly engage in an all-out battle. That's why they decided to utilize their geographical position. Swish. Axe-destroying King Ho Taegang raised his axe. As if on cue, black and red flags rose over all the mountain peaks at the entrance of the 10,000 Great Mountains, starting from the peak where he stood. Heavenly Demon. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-chuck. The advancing Righteous Alliance forces stopped in their tracks at the sight of the flags covering the peaks of the 10,000 Great Mountains. The Righteous Alliance forces, which had been overflowing with morale just moments ago, suddenly fell silent. This was because anyone would be rendered speechless at the sight of those flags filling the mountain peaks. What on earth is that? Why are there so many flags? Could there be more of them than us? The flags were overwhelmingly numerous, and their position on such high ground made it seem as if there were hundreds of thousands of troops before them. Yung Myong Sate, an elder of the Hengshan sect, furrowed his brow as he saw the characters, Heavenly Demon, written on the flags. Amit Ba. Was the Danmok clan head's words true? The most crucial part of this matter is the information that the Seventh Heaven is about to start an internal war within Heaven and Earth Society. They had hurriedly gathered and marched south to not miss this crucial moment. If an internal war broke out within Heaven and Earth Society, they could take advantage of the situation. It was an opportunity to deal with both Heaven and Earth Society, one of the three major powers, and Heavenly Demon simultaneously. Drip. Cold sweat trickled down Yung Myong Sate's forehead. Truly a terrifying person. They had intended to come down before the internal war ended, but had he already swallowed up such a massive force? This is unprecedented in the history of the Central Plains martial arts world. The initial trigger was the danger posed by this person called Heavenly Demon. It took less than a month for him to rise as a new member of the Seven Heavens. He toppled Shaolin's 108 Arhat formation in one step, sealed off the Sichuan Tang family single-handedly, and even subjugated the Spiritual Sword Sanctuary sect, considered the strongest among the neutral factions. Due to this shockingly rapid progress, the Righteous Alliance, for the first time since the Great War between the righteous and demonic factions, since its establishment, became wary of a single individual. Impossible. Moyong Hak, the eldest son of the Moyong clan and another person who had directly witnessed him, also turned pale at the sight of the Heavenly Demon flags covering the peaks of the 10,000 Great Mountains. It was too fast even for being fast. How could this be possible so soon after the internal war broke out? As they were stunned like this, "Listen, everyone." Just then, a voice filled with such profound true energy that it drew admiration resounded throughout the area. The gazes of all the Righteous Alliance warriors, who had been overwhelmed by the flags on the mountain peaks, turned to the front. There stood Zhang Haiyanmun, the leader of the Righteous Alliance, holding the famous sword Iy. Zhang Haiyanmun rose into the air as if walking up invisible stairs, so that everyone could see him. Oh, it's the Void Step. Everyone couldn't help but marvel at his appearance. As their gazes focused on him, Righteous Alliance leader Zhang Haiyanmun spoke again. Chivalrous heroes of the righteous path. His voice echoed like thunder. It was loud enough to be heard even on the peaks of the 10,000 Great Mountains. Even the top executives under Mok Jaeongun couldn't help but feel tense, inwardly amazed by Zhang Haiyanmun's voice. Zhang Haiyanmun was one of the three considered to be the strongest among the seven heavens, the pinnacle of the current martial arts world. Zhang Haiyanmun continued speaking loudly as if for everyone to hear. There's no need to be fooled by the empty show of force before us. They have not yet recovered from the damage of their internal war. This is just a desperate attempt to deceive our eyes because they fear us who uphold justice. Chivalrous heroes of the righteous path. I, your alliance leader, will lead from the front. I will be the first to bleed and take arrows, so awaken your fighting spirit. Ignite your will to fight. Let's show them that justice will prevail. As soon as his words ended, Wa-wa-wa-ha. When the 46,000 warriors shouted in unison, the heavens and earth shook. As their morale was revived, the expressions of the former Heaven and Earth Society warriors hiding on the mountain peaks hardened. Poison King Baeksa shook his head as he observed this. It wasn't good. If Mok Jaeongun, their leader, had been here at this moment, he could have raised morale, but his absence was significant. We need to raise our fighting spirit here too, but Master O isn't suitable for this. O Cheonmu, the master of Spiritual Sword Sanctuary, was also one of the seven heavens. However, as an externally recruited figure, he was unsuitable for raising the morale of their troops through oration. O Cheonmu knew this, which is why he didn't rashly step forward despite being in a similar position to Zhang Haiyanmun. To raise their morale, they needed at least someone who— What are you all so afraid of? Just then, a sharp voice rang out from somewhere among the mountain peaks. What's this? Who is it? At this, the gazes of all the executives, including Poison King Baeksa, and all the former Heaven and Earth Society warriors turned towards where the shout had come from. In the middle of the mountain peaks, in a position invisible to the Righteous Alliance, stood a peerlessly beautiful woman. She was none other than Wai So-yun, one of the three disciples of the late Heaven and Earth Society leader. Miss Wai So-yun? Why is the young miss suddenly? Everyone was stirred up by her appearance. Regardless, Wai So-yun pointed at the Righteous Alliance and shouted, "Why do you think they've gathered here like this? It's because they fear our master, no, our Lord Heavenly Demon. Despite all their talk about justice, they're nothing but hypocrites who come in mobs. Why are you afraid of such lowlifes? Are we so weak that we'd be pushed back by these cowards who fear our Lord and us?" At her words, the top executives, including Poison King Baeksa, couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. Although they knew she was Mok Jaeongun's helper despite being a disciple of the former Heaven and Earth Society leader, no one had expected her to step forward like this at this moment. But then something unexpected happened. The warriors whose spirits had been dampened by Alliance leader Zhang Haiyanmun's rousing speech suddenly stood up and shouted, "Who says we're weak? That's right. Why should we fear these mob-like bastards who can't win with skill alone? Yeah. We're not afraid of such lowlifes at all. Hey, Baima Commander Yecheon will be the first to smash their heads. Those who are afraid can follow behind me. Pahahahat. What's the weakest commander doing taking the lead? I, the crushing commander, will take the lead. Nonsense. I'll be at the front beheading those bastards." As shouts full of fighting spirit erupted here and there, the expressions of the warriors began to change. Their morale and will to fight were rising. And at some point it reached a crescendo and burst out all at once. Wa-wa-wa-ha. Let's sweep away the enemy. The cheers, echoing even more due to the mountain peaks, shook the heavens and earth more than when they had shaken the plains. As the Allied forces' fighting spirit and morale reached their peak, the corners of the mouths of Mok Jaeongun's top executives turned upward. An unexpected situation had unfolded. Originally, raising morale was the job of the leader who commanded the forces, the commander. But Wai So-yun had unintentionally accomplished this. In fact, Wai So-yun, or rather Go-chan, Mok Jaeongun's spirit servant possessing her body, was so dumbfounded by the rapidly rising morale of their allies that he fell on his backside. He had stepped forward in frustration because no one was trying to raise morale when they needed to hold out until their lord arrived, but things had unexpectedly gone well. Whoa. Did I have talent in this area too? Should he have entered the military and become a general instead of being destined to be an assassin in his past life? Meanwhile, on the Righteous Alliance side. What's going on? Did their morale suddenly rise? Why isn't their spirit dying down? This rise in morale was clearly transmitted to the Righteous Alliance camp as well. As a result, the morale and fighting spirit on both sides were evenly matched, with neither side faltering. Zhang Haiyanmun's eyes, floating in the air and looking towards the 10,000 great mountains, narrowed sharply. She didn't have such leadership skills before. That voice was clearly Wei Soyun's. Did she, who only had a soul left, have such an aspect? Alliance leader Zhang Haiyanmun soon snorted. It didn't matter anyway. Whether their morale rose or not, the original purpose was one: to kill and be killed. His face, with his back to the Righteous Alliance forces, was twisted with madness and killing intent. However, no one could see this expression of his. Swish. Alliance leader Zhang Haiyanmun raised his hand, stretched it forward and shouted loudly. Front ranks, advance. Wah-wah-wah-ha. As soon as those words fell, the Righteous Alliance warriors holding shields in the front line charged forward towards the 10,000 great mountains with a roar. Facing the oncoming large-scale force of 46,000, thousands of warriors hiding on the mountain peaks simultaneously drew their bows, aiming arrows to meet the enemies. The great battle had finally begun. At that moment, far away, someone was watching the clash between these two forces with their hands behind their back. That someone soon slightly raised the corners of their mouth and gave an order. Bring her to my side. As you command. Pat. As soon as those words fell, dozens of shadowy figures flew towards the direction of the 10,000 great mountains. Chapter 470. The Great Battle 3. As the Righteous Alliance warriors with shields advanced in formation, Corpse Blood Valley Master Li Jiom, watching them, spoke in a low voice to Go Chan, who was possessing the body of Wei Soyun, the youngest disciple of the late Heaven and Earth Society leader. You did well to raise our troops' morale, but it was reckless. But go back inside. Li Jiom pointed to a place with a large boulder. Go Chan, who was about to make an excuse, nodded and walked towards it. He then slipped into a hole beside the boulder. Li Jiom approached and pushed the large boulder to cover the hole. Rumble rumble. Phew. After erasing the marks left by the dragged boulder with his foot, Li Jiom sighed and shook his head. Under Mok Jiaoyun's orders, he was the only one who knew the importance of Wei Soyun's existence. That's why, in a counterintuitive move, he had brought her to the battlefield instead of the Heaven and Earth Society headquarters to protect her. The hole she entered was one of many hidden ambush points and safe houses scattered throughout the 10,000 great mountains. It was a reverse strategy, banking on the idea that the darkest place is under the lamplight, but thanks to her blatant appearance, the enemy had now pinpointed her location. This will be difficult. Fring. Li Jiom, shaking his head, drew his sword and prepared to meet the enemy. Meanwhile, axe-destroying King Ho Taegang on the highest peak of the front line, swung his axe to signal. The archers holding bows concentrated their true energy on their fingertips, pulling the bowstrings. Thud 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 thud. Thousands of Righteous Alliance shield warriors were rapidly approaching. Even in wars between martial artists, the battle resembled that between armies until it came to direct close-quarter combat. Those holding high ground or defending would keep the enemy in check with arrows, stones and spears. Not yet. The flag-bearers relaying Ho Taegang's signals watched his axe with tense eyes. The enemy was approaching, but there was still no signal to shoot arrows. Ho Taegang focused on the incoming wind. Despite the arrows imbued with true energy flying much further than those shot by ordinary archers, they were waiting because of the wind direction. The wind was still blowing towards them, so shooting arrows now wouldn't be very effective. Thus, they had to wait until the enemy was within proper range. Thud 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 thud. The Righteous Alliance shield warriors had approached to about 400 paces. The strong wind began to subside gradually. Now. At that moment, Ho Taegang thrust his axe forward. With that, flags fluttered, and as if they had been waiting, The archers simultaneously fired arrows towards the Righteous Alliance shield warriors. Quack 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 quack. As thousands of arrows imbued with true energy flew at incredible speed, the advancing Righteous Alliance warriors stopped. Shields up. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-chuck. At the commander's shout, they formed ranks of 5, raising their shields and lowering their stance. They then infused true energy into their shields. Wangbo Song, the head of the Wangbo clan commanding the shield warriors, grinned. These specially made shields won't be easily pierced even by arrows imbued with true energy. Go ahead and shoot all you want. The purpose of the shield warriors at the front was 1. To quickly deplete the enemy's arrows. Don't let your guard down and grit your teeth. Thousands of arrows rained down like a downpour, striking their iron shields. Pew 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 k. This isn't as bad as I thought. Ha! But the sound of arrows hitting the iron shields was strange. Since the arrowheads were also made of iron, they should have made a clanging sound when hitting, but this sounded more like leather or cloth hitting. Pew 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 k. Though feeling something was off, they couldn't lower their shields as arrows continued to rain down. Right at that moment, something like smoke began to rise from around them. Sensing something amiss, Wangbo Song, the head of the Wangbo clan, looked at the arrowheads fallen on the ground. But their tips weren't sharp iron. They were actually bundles of leather or cloth, and smoke was rising from them. Could it be? Just then the warriors holding shields began coughing here and there. Cough cough. Heck, they can't breathe. Some were even seen clutching their throats as if choking. Seeing this, Wangbo Song shouted in alarm. It's poison mist. Poison mist. Retreat. The rising smoke was none other than poison mist. Blood was now flowing from the mouths of those who had been coughing, and many were collapsing with their faces turning blue. Cover your noses and mouths with cloth and hold your breath. Wangbo Song shouted this while covering his own nose and mouth with cloth, using his true energy to block the poison trying to enter through his skin. However, the poison seemed stronger than expected as his skin stung severely. Thud 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 thud. The shield warriors who had been advancing in formation were now in disarray, retreating to the rear as they succumbed to the poison mist. Those in the rear ranks managed to escape relatively unscathed as they were less exposed to the poison mist, but not those at the front. Thud, thud, thump, hack hack. Erg. More than half were already dying from poison. Damn it. Wangbo Song of the Wangbo clan, also retreating and creating distance, shouted towards the 10,000 great mountains, unable to contain his anger. You cowardly demonic heretics. How dare you use poison? In martial artists' duels or wars, the use of poison was implicitly forbidden. This was not because of the effectiveness of poison, but because it was seen as a weapon specialized only for killing, giving an impression of cowardice rather than honorable combat between martial artists. Therefore, the Righteous Alliance side naturally assumed they wouldn't use poison. However, what's cowardly about killing each other in war? It's childishly hypocritical to say that pushing with numbers when you can't win with strength is fine, but poison isn't. Ha ha ha. At axe-destroying King Ho Taegang's mocking shout, laughter erupted from all over the 10,000 great mountains. Damn it. Wangbo Song became even more enraged at the sound of laughter. Poison King Baek Saha raised the corners of his mouth as he watched less than half of the thousands retreat. Ho ho. They've tied their own noose. Shadow Clan Master Yisian nodded in agreement with his words. If they wanted to counter poison, they should have brought the Sichuan Tang family by any means necessary, sealed doors or not. Such foolish people. Ho 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 ho. The Sichuan Tang family was the only group in the righteous faction that dealt with poisons. However, they had been sealed off after being defeated by Mok Jiangun. Thus, the Righteous Alliance had to wage war without the Sichuan Tang clan. The righteous faction, which valued principles, was tripped up by their strict adherence to established rules. Cage, those bastards actually used poison. Tis-K. Hong Won-suk, the leader of Beggar's sect, clicked his tongue as he watched their allies retreating. Other Righteous Alliance executives also couldn't contain their anger as they watched the shield warriors retreating from the very start. Grind. So it's come to this. They hadn't expected the absence of Thousand Poison Hand Tang In-hei, one of the 8 stars, and the Sichuan Tang clan to have such a huge impact. But only now, as the war unfolded, could they realize. The fact that poison can only be countered with poison. In this situation, we'll have to abandon any attrition strategy of depleting their arrows and quickly close in for close-quarter combat. That's right. If we engage in close combat, they won't be able to use poison due to the risk to their own troops. Jin Sokja, the head of the Qingqing sect, expressed agreement with Gu Qiuljia, the head of the Huashan sect. While most of the Righteous Alliance executives agreed with their opinion, Yong Myong Sate of the Hengshan sect expressed concern. Amit Ba. Even if we cover our noses and mouths with cloth and hold our breath until we get close, our troops will suffer heavy casualties. How do you plan to address this? We have no choice, Sa. We can't just stand by out of fear of poison casualties. But at that moment, Danmok Inho, the head of the Danmok clan, stepped forward and spoke. As it happens, our Danmok clan has prepared some poison-repelling beads. How about using those? Poison-repelling beads, you say? Poison-repelling beads. These were beads with detoxifying properties. They could be used as medicine, and due to their strong detoxifying properties, if used to start a fire, they could also have the effect of pushing back and blocking things like poison mist. Oh. How many do you have? About 100. You have 100 of those precious things? Yes. But is it alright to use them like this? If it's for the justice of the martial arts world, how can we worry about their value? Excellent. Excellent. Thanks to the foresight of the Danmok clan head, we can reduce our casualties. The Righteous Alliance executives showed relief at the large number of poison-repelling beads. Watching this, Righteous Alliance leader Zhang Haiman, his mouth twitching, turned his gaze towards the 10,000 Great Mountains. He had them prepared just in case, since the Sichuan Tang clan had been sealed off, but he didn't expect them to use poison so soon. Even though they weren't on the righteous path, he thought that Heaven and Earth Society, also aspiring to martial arts, wouldn't use poison from the start unless completely cornered. But seeing them use it without hesitation, it seemed they had been greatly influenced by someone. Was it him after all? Just as he was thinking that they had taken the initiative at the start of the battle. Thud 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 thud. The ground began to shake. Murmur murmur. As the trembling gradually increased, the stirring Righteous Alliance warriors all turned their gazes backward. There they saw numerous cavalry units filling the plains in a straight line. What's this? Could it be, already? The expressions of the former Heaven and Earth Society warriors, who had been cheering at the retreating Righteous Alliance front line, began to harden. The number of rapidly advancing cavalry alone seemed to reach nearly 10,000, and the flag fluttering at the front read, Evil Alliance. Inside the ancient forbidden technique Supreme Void Sealing Reversal Technique. Mok Jaeungun's face, trapped in extremely slowly flowing time and unable to move, was becoming more haggard than at first. Even though time flowed slowly, his mind didn't slow down accordingly. However, Mok Jaeungun's eyes were still alive. The single-minded thought that he had to escape from here somehow was keeping his spirit intact. But this was not easy. The completed Supreme Void Sealing Reversal Technique was literally close to perfection, making it impossible to find even the slightest gap. So even if he tried to break it with intense will, he couldn't do anything to this space itself with his mind sword. Is it impossible to cut without the capacity of nothingness? Within the Supreme Void Sealing Reversal Technique space, time barely flowed, making it impossible to even gather the capacity of nothingness. Without this capacity to support him, there was a limit to manifesting sharpness with will alone. What should I do? Mok Jaeungun was becoming increasingly anxious. As time passed, he grew more worried about Chong Ryong's safety. Knowing this feeling of his, Mok Gon maintained a manic smile while looking at him, even though his avatar was facing near death. Is it really going to end up as he wants? Will I be trapped here, unable to do anything? Am I going to lose Chong Ryong like this? These repeated questions to himself. Mok Jaeungun's eyes gradually became clouded with deep darkness. Ordinary people tend to become mentally weak when they fall into anxiety. However, this anxiety awakened a deep darkness that had been deeply dormant in Mok Jaeungun. Whoosh! Before he knew it, black flames flickered in Mok Jaeungun's eyes.